So this border catastrophe is not a natural disaster. It's not an act of God. It's an act of Joe Biden. Let's talk about this with Mark Krikorian, Executive Director of the Center for Immigration Studies. Mark, thanks for coming back on. I haven't talked to you for a while, but we're kind of heading for Armageddon here. Title 42 probably lapses, Wednesday? Maybe they'll extend it for a few more days. But I'm interested, what exactly are the Bidens going to substitute for Title 42 when this disaster happens? What can you tell us about this?
They've put out a memo about what they're going to do when there's going to be a huge increase, probably doubling of the flow of people coming across when they lift Title 42. But they see the problem not as a huge number of unauthorized people coming into the United States. They see the problem as lots of people, gathering and sleeping on the streets, and they're being, overwhelming these local communities. So their solution is to spend more money to get these people into the United States faster, rather than to somehow deter people from coming across the border. So the question is, what's the problem? They see the problem totally differently from what everybody else sees the problem as.
Boy, what a terrific idea. So you could double it from 2.5 million to 5 million because of this thing. This is the last bastion. I'm reading your op-ed piece in the New York Post, Mark. They want to pre-legalize people. I guess that's what you're talking about. Are they still, I guess they are they still in denial that there's a border problem? Because you hear the press secretary, you hear Kamala Harris, you hear Mayorkas. I mean, the House Republicans are talking about impeaching Mayorkas, whether that's right or wrong. The guy's completely inept. Don't they think something has to be done? You hear all the border state governors. You see what Greg Abbott is talking about. Here in New York, for example, Mayor Eric Adams is now crying out he wants $1 billion more to handle the overflow of illegal immigrants. I mean, doesn't something have to be done, and it has to be done pronto?
It should be, but Mike, like I said, they don't see the enormous flow of people as the problem. They see it as a kind of natural disaster that they need to spend money on and have FEMA deal with. Literally, they're having FEMA deal with some of this, as opposed to, as you said at the beginning, this is a disaster that their policies created. The problem is they don't think that the American people have the right to keep people out. They think these people have a right to enter the United States. And so the only question is, how is it done more expeditiously? How is it done in ways that will be less inconvenient for the people living in El Paso and what have you? Not how do we stop this? In fact, earlier this year, Bret Baier asked Secretary Mayorkas, is the administration's policy to somehow reduce dramatically the number of people coming across the border? And Mayorkas would not say yes. He said their policy is to move people through quickly and make sure everybody gets a bite at the apple in court and what have you. So they see this issue as from a totally different perspective than everybody else.
Can't we replace, okay, so that's nutty, I get that. Can't Title 42, which was a health issue, it's a COVID issue, the COVID emergency is over. Can't that be replaced, Mark, with something that effectively would restore the Trump policy, which was catch and deport? Now, whether it's remain in Mexico, which I always thought was very sensible and worked, even the socialist president of Mexico was in favor of that. I still believe we should continue to finish the wall, the unfinished part of the wall, which has helped in the areas where that's been put up. But replacing Title 42, if not a health reason, I don't know, maybe a drug reason, maybe a fentanyl reason, but any reason that essentially would say to illegals, we're sorry, but you have to go back to where you came from. We cannot take you as illegals. That's the big question that's going to come up in the next 48 hours.
The problem is Congress would have to do that, and the Democrats in Congress will not restrain this president on immigration because they agree with him. Look, they see immigration limits as immoral, as something like Jim Crow. And so they actually see themselves as heroic in subverting immigration law and letting in hundreds of thousands of people who have no right to be here. I mean, I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but that is the way they view this. And so there's no way you're going to get anything through a Democratic-controlled Congress, or even if it's just the Senate.
But, Mark, let me just raise this point. This is another reason why the omnibus bill has to be defeated. We had Kevin McCarthy on. You're going to have a new Republican House. They have an entirely different view. They want to stop the flow of illegal immigrants and go back to some of the Trump policies, et cetera. So if we can stall, this is why I hate to divert, but this is why a continuing resolution for a couple weeks is vastly preferable to an omnibus bill, which would go another year. The House Republicans are going to have a totally different take, and they'll use the power of the purse to enforce it. Just got to give you the last word for 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, there's a limit to what the House can do when the Republicans are in charge, but they have to at least have the chance to do it. This is why an omnibus bill that will lock them in until September is a terrible mistake.
All right, well said. Mark Krikorian, thanks for